Picture this: Sunday night, 1962, families across America tuning in to see flying cars, robot maids, and a future filled with push-button convenience. The Jetsons brought tomorrow into living rooms everywhere, only to vanish after just 24 episodes. Here's the rise and fall of the Jetsons, and why it was canceled so suddenly. The birth of a futuristic vision. When William Hanna and Joseph Barbera sat down to create the Jetsons, they had a proven formula. The Flintstones had been a smash hit since 1960, bringing Stone Age slapstick to prime-time television. The concept was simple: take a modern family and drop them into a prehistoric setting. For their next project, Hanna-Barbera decided to reverse the formula entirely. Instead of looking backward, they'd look forward. The Jetsons would be the Flintstones' space-age counterpart. Where Fred Flintstone used a dinosaur-powered car, George Jetson would zip around in a flying vehicle. Where Wilma had Stone Age appliances, Jane would have robotic helpers. The parallels were intentional and obvious. Even the family structures mirrored each other: a working father, a homemaker mother, 2 children, and a family pet. Development took 16 months. The creative team wanted to get the future right, or at least make it entertaining. They imagined a world 100 years ahead, setting the show in 2062. This wasn't hard science fiction. Nobody was worried about accurate predictions or technological plausibility. The goal was to create a funny, family-friendly sitcom that just happened to be set in outer space. The design work was spectacular. Orbit City, where the Jetsons lived, rose high above the clouds in gleaming towers. Flying cars zipped between buildings on invisible highways in the sky. Moving sidewalks carried pedestrians effortlessly. Robots performed menial tasks. Video phones let people see each other while they talked. Some of these predictions would eventually come true. Others remained firmly in the realm of fantasy. George Jetson worked at Spacely Space Sprockets, run by his boss Cosmo Spacely. His job consisted mainly of pushing buttons, yet somehow he came home exhausted every day. Jane spent her time shopping, getting her hair done, and managing their robot maid, Rosie. Teenage daughter Judy worried about boys and fashion. Young Elroy attended school and got into the kinds of trouble that kids in any era might experience. Their dog Astro could talk, after a fashion, adding rupees to the beginning of his words. The voice cast brought these characters to life with skill and charm. George O'Hanlon voiced George Jetson, bringing a harried, everyman quality that made the character instantly relatable. O'Hanlon had been a familiar face in Hollywood, starring in the Warner Brothers, live-action Joe McDoke's short films during the 1940s and 1950s. His ability to convey both exasperation and warmth made George Jetson feel like someone who could live next door, even in outer space. Penny Singleton provided the voice for Jane Jetson. Singleton had achieved fame playing Blondie Bumstead in the popular Blondie film series during the 1930s and 1940s, appearing in 28 films based on the comic strip. Her experience playing the quintessential American housewife translated perfectly to Jane, giving the character a peppy, optimistic quality. Singleton's voice work helped establish Jane as both supportive wife and modern woman, even if the writers didn't always give her much to do beyond shopping. Daws Butler, one of the most prolific voice actors in animation history, provided the voice for young Elroy. Butler had already created voices for Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, and Quick Draw McGraw, among dozens of other characters. His work as Elroy demonstrated his remarkable range, capturing the enthusiasm and curiosity of a bright young boy living in an extraordinary world. Janet Waldo voiced Judy Jetson, the teenage daughter worried about boys, fashion, and fitting in with her peers. Waldo would later become famous as the voice of Josie in Josie and the Pussycats, but in 1962, she was already an established voice actress with years of experience in radio and animation. She gave Judy a breathless, Valley Girl quality that would become iconic. The legendary Mel Blanc, known as the Man of 1,000 Voices, voiced both Mr. Spacely and the family dog Astro. Blanc was already famous for bringing to life Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, and dozens of other Warner Brothers characters. He also voiced Barney Rubble on The Flintstones. His work as the tyrannical, short-tempered Mr. Spacely created one of television animation's most memorable bosses, while his portrayal of Astro, with its distinctive speech pattern of adding R's to the beginning of words, became instantly recognizable. Don Messick, who would later become famous as the voice of Scooby-Doo, portrayed Astro with warmth and comic timing. Jean Vanderpill, the voice of Wilma Flintstone, voiced both Rosie the Robot and other characters in the series. The cast represented the best voice talent available in Hollywood animation, bringing professionalism and skill to every episode.
To be more pleasant, Spacely, I'm really doing you a favor, teaching you responsibility.
A grand premiere in living color. The Jetsons premiered on ABC on September 23, 1962 at 7:30 in the evening on Sunday nights. This wasn't just another cartoon debut. The Jetsons became the first program ever broadcast in color on ABC. This was a significant achievement, though it came with serious complications that would affect the show's success. Color television in 1962 was still a luxury item. The technology existed and was improving rapidly, but the reality was that most American households still watched television on black and white sets. Only 3% of American homes had color television in 1962. It wouldn't be until 1972, a full decade later, that half of American households owned color sets. For the Jetsons, this meant that the vast majority of viewers saw it in shades of gray rather than the vibrant, futuristic colors the animators had carefully chosen. The situation was even more complicated than simple ownership statistics suggest. Only a handful of ABC affiliate stations in major cities like New York, Chicago, Detroit, San Francisco, and Los Angeles had the capability to broadcast in color. Viewers in smaller cities and rural areas couldn't receive color programming at all, even if they owned color sets. The Jetsons was being promoted as a groundbreaking color show that most of the country couldn't watch in color. The irony was almost painful. Here was a show about the future, showcasing tomorrow's technology, broadcast using the latest television innovations, but the vast majority of viewers couldn't experience it as intended. The Flintstones, by comparison, had been produced in color from the start, but aired in black and white for its first 2 seasons. The difference was that the Flintstones had already built a loyal audience before color broadcasting became standard. The Jetsons needed to attract viewers immediately, and being in color, which most people couldn't see, wasn't enough to overcome other obstacles. The premiere episode introduced viewers to the Jetson family and their world. We saw George's morning routine, compressed to mere seconds thanks to futuristic technology. We watched him commute to work in his aero car, navigating the crowded skyways of Orbit City. We met his tyrannical boss, Mr. Spacely, who bore more than a passing resemblance to Fred Flintstone's boss, Mr. Slate. The parallels to the Flintstones were obvious and intentional. Critics had mixed reactions. Time magazine, reviewing the fall 1962 television schedule, grouped the Jetsons with several other new sitcoms as shows that were stretching further than ever for their situations. After the season premiered, they called it silly and unpretentious, corny and clever, now and then quite funny. This wasn't exactly a rave review, but it wasn't a pan either. The show was seen as harmless fun, nothing more.
You almost destroyed Spacely's space rocket.
But Mr. Coxwell tricked me.
The competition problem. The Jetsons faced a nearly insurmountable obstacle from day one. ABC had scheduled it directly opposite 2 established, beloved programs, Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color on NBC and Dennis the Menace on CBS. This was not a minor scheduling conflict. This was television suicide. Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color was a juggernaut. It had been on the air since 1954, originally as Disneyland, then as Walt Disney Presents, and now with this new title emphasizing NBC's commitment to color broadcasting. Every Sunday evening, Walt Disney himself introduced a different program. Sometimes it was a nature documentary. Other times, it featured excerpts from Disney movies. Occasionally, it presented original dramatic programming. The variety kept audiences engaged, and the Disney name brought instant credibility and loyalty. More importantly, Disney's show had been specifically designed to promote color television. NBC and RCA, which owned NBC, were heavily invested in selling color TV sets. Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color served as a weekly showcase for what color television could do. For families who had recently purchased expensive color sets or who were considering the investment, Disney's show was required viewing. Dennis the Menace, meanwhile, was entering its 4th season on CBS. Based on the popular comic strip by Hank Ketchum, the show featured a mischievous young boy and his long-suffering neighbors. It was a live-action sitcom with consistent ratings and a loyal following. Families knew what to expect, and they tuned in reliably week after week. The Jetsons, by contrast, was an unknown quantity. It was a new animated sitcom trying to find an audience in a time slot dominated by established programming. Worse, it was competing with content that appealed to the exact same demographic: families with children looking for wholesome Sunday evening entertainment. The deck was stacked against it from the beginning. Network executives at ABC must have known this would be a problem. Why they scheduled the Jetsons in this slot remains something of a mystery. Perhaps they hoped the novelty of a futuristic cartoon would draw viewers away from the competition. Perhaps they overestimated the appeal of being first in color on ABC. Perhaps they simply didn't have a better time slot available. Whatever the reason, the decision proved fatal.
Good morning, George.
Ratings, struggle, and swift cancellation. The ratings told a brutal story. Despite the quality of the animation, the clever writing, and the talented voice cast, the Jetsons never found a significant audience in prime time. Week after week, it lost to Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color and Dennis the Menace. Families who had to choose between the 3 programs consistently chose one of the established shows. The problem wasn't quality. The Jetsons was well made by any standard. The animation, while employing the limited techniques common to television cartoons of the era, was clean and appealing. The character designs were memorable. The futuristic gadgets were imaginative and often funny. The storylines, while simple, hit familiar sitcom beats effectively. None of this mattered if people weren't watching. ABC gave the show a full season, producing 24 episodes. The final new episode aired on March 17, 1963. Primetime reruns continued through September 22, 1963, fulfilling the show's original contract. But no second season was ordered. After just 1 year, The Jetsons was canceled. The cancellation came suddenly, without ceremony or explanation. There was no farewell episode, no chance for the creators to provide closure. The show simply ended. 1 week it was on the air, and then it wasn't. For viewers who had become attached to George, Jane, Judy, Elroy, and Astro, there was no goodbye. Contemporary reports described the show as a commercial failure. Animation historian Bob Hathcock later noted that The Jetsons received negative reviews and failed to connect with audiences during its original run. This assessment might seem harsh to those of us who remember the show fondly, but it reflects the reality of how the series was perceived in 1962 and 1963. Looking back, it's easy to identify the factors that contributed to the show's failure. The scheduling was disastrous. The limited color broadcasting meant most viewers couldn't appreciate the show's full visual appeal. The concept, while clever, may have been too similar to the Flintstones for some audiences. And perhaps 1962 viewers weren't quite ready for a vision of the future that mixed optimism with the mundane realities of suburban family life.
Sign it or go to jail. Yes, and it won't be one of those country club jails.
Life after cancellation. The story could have ended there. Many canceled shows disappear completely, remembered only by those who happened to catch them during their brief runs. The Jetsons took a different path. After its primetime cancellation, ABC made a decision that would save the show and eventually make it an enduring classic. They moved the Jetsons to Saturday morning. Beginning in the 1963-64 season, reruns of the Jetsons began airing on ABC's Saturday morning lineup. This turned out to be the perfect home for the series. Saturday morning television in the early 1960s was dominated by cartoons aimed at children, and the Jetsons fit right in. Kids didn't care that it had failed in prime time against adult competition. They just cared that it was fun to watch, with flying cars, robot maids, and all those amazing gadgets. The show's fortunes changed almost immediately. What had been a ratings disaster on Sunday evenings became a genuine success on Saturday mornings. Children embraced the Jetson family wholeheartedly. The humor that had failed to capture adult attention on Sunday nights worked perfectly for younger viewers who were happy to spend their Saturday mornings in Orbit City. The simple family dynamics, the visual gags, the futuristic setting, all of it clicked with the Saturday morning audience in ways it never had with primetime viewers. The Jetsons would spend the next 2 decades as a Saturday morning fixture. After its initial run on ABC, the show moved to CBS for the 1964-65 season, and again from 1969 to 1971. NBC aired it from 1965 to 1967, then brought it back for multiple additional runs throughout the 1970s. Including 1971 to 76, 1979 to 81, and 1982 to 83. The show bounced between all 3 major networks, a relatively rare achievement that demonstrated its enduring appeal. Beginning in 1976, the show also entered syndication, playing in afternoon time slots on local stations across the country, further expanding its reach. This constant presence in reruns created something remarkable and unprecedented. The original 24 episodes played over and over, year after year, decade after decade, introducing the Jetson family to multiple generations of children. Kids who watched the show in 1964 grew up, had children of their own, and those children watched the same episodes in 1974. Those second-generation fans grew up and had kids who watched in 1984. 3 generations experienced the same 24 episodes, creating a shared cultural touchstone that transcended age groups. The repetition actually enhanced the show's impact, rather than diminishing it. Fans memorized favorite episodes, quoted dialogue, and anticipated their favorite moments. The opening sequence, where each family member is dropped off at their destination, became iconic. The closing scene, with George stuck on the out-of-control treadmill while walking Astro, entered the collective consciousness. These images and moments achieved a kind of cultural permanence through sheer repetition, becoming reference points that millions of Americans shared.
What are these sprockets doing in my office?
Welcome back, Mr. Spacely.
The sprockets, Jetson.
The 1980s revival. By the mid-1980s, nostalgia for the Jetsons had built to the point where new episodes made financial sense. In 1984, Hanna-Barbera announced they would produce new episodes specifically for syndication. This was a bold move. More than 20 years had passed since the original episodes aired. Could they recapture what made the show work? The new episodes began airing in September 1985. 41 episodes were produced for this second season, nearly doubling the show's total output. These new episodes cost $300,000 each to produce, a significant investment that demonstrated Hanna-Barbera's confidence in the property. The 24 original episodes were packaged alongside the new ones, airing in 80 U.S. media markets, including the 30 largest. Remarkably, the revival featured all the original voice actors from the 1962-63 season. George O'Hanlon returned as George. Penny Singleton came back as Jane. Dawes Butler reprised Elroy. Janet Waldo returned as Judy. Mel Blanc voiced Spacely and Astro once again. Having the original cast was crucial to maintaining continuity with the classic episodes. The new episodes introduced some new characters, including Orbity, an alien pet for the family, and Orwell Spacely, Mr. Spacely's inventive nephew. These additions gave the writers fresh material to work with while keeping the core family dynamic intact. The animation style was updated to reflect 1980s techniques, and the theme song was re-recorded with electronic drums typical of the decade. In 1987, 10 additional episodes were produced, bringing the total to 75 episodes across all 3 seasons. The show was successful enough that there was talk of continuing further, but tragedy intervened. In 1988 and 1989, the core voice cast began to pass away. Mel Blanc died in July 1989. Dawes Butler had died in May 1988. George O'Hanlon died in February 1989, shortly after recording his lines for the animated film Jetsons, the movie. These deaths effectively ended any possibility of continuing the series with the original cast. There were attempts to recast some roles for the 1990 theatrical film, including replacing Janet Waldo as Judy with pop star Tiffany, but these changes were controversial. No further episodes or specials were produced after 1989. The voice actors who had brought these characters to life were irreplaceable.
Spacely's car and Judy's driving ours? Oh, I knew this was the day I should have...
The legacy. The Jetsons left an indelible mark on American popular culture despite its troubled beginning. The show's vision of the future became the vision of the future for millions of people. When we imagined what life would be like in the 21st century, we pictured flying cars, robot maids, and buildings that floated above the clouds. The Jetsons shaped those expectations. Some predictions came true. Video phones, which seemed impossibly futuristic in 1962, are now commonplace through services like FaceTime and Zoom. Moving sidewalks exist in airports and shopping centers. Robotic vacuum cleaners like the Roomba echo Rosie the robot, albeit in less sophisticated form. The show's creators managed to anticipate several genuine technological developments. Other predictions remain firmly in the realm of fantasy. We don't have flying cars in 2026, despite decades of promises. We don't live in towers above the clouds. We don't have robot maids who look and act like humans. Our workdays haven't been compressed to pushing a few buttons for a couple of hours. In many ways, the future turned out very different from what the Jetsons imagined. But the show's real legacy isn't about accurate predictions. It's about how it made us think about the future with optimism and humor. The Jetsons presented tomorrow as a place where families still faced everyday problems, but where technology made life easier and more fun. It was an idealistic vision, perhaps even naive, but it was hopeful. In an age marked by Cold War anxieties and the threat of nuclear annihilation, that hopefulness meant something. The show also succeeded on a basic level as family entertainment. The Jetsons was funny. The relationship between George and Mr. Spacely provided solid workplace comedy. The dynamics between family members felt familiar and relatable, even in their futuristic setting. Jane's shopping obsessions, Judy's boy troubles, Elroy's adventures, George's work problems. These were timeless sitcom elements that worked regardless of the setting. The opening and closing sequences became iconic. Everyone who grew up watching the Jetsons can still hum the theme song. We remember George getting stuck on that out-of-control treadmill while walking Astro, crying out, "Jane, stop this crazy thing." We remember the flying car dropping each family member off at their destination. These images burned themselves into our collective memory.
And get the benefit of an extension by betrothal to a bona fide
Why it matters today. Time magazine wrote in 1992 that in an age of working mothers, single parents, and changing family structures, the Jetson family already seemed quaint, even to the baby boomers who grew up with them. This observation gets at something important. The Jetsons was very much a product of its time, presenting a vision of the future that was really just a reflection of early 1960s suburban life. The show's gender roles feel dated now. Jane is a housewife whose main activities are shopping and getting her hair done. George works while Jane manages the home. Judy's primary concerns are fashion and boys. These characterizations reflected the assumptions and limitations of early 1960s sitcoms. The show imagined amazing technological advances, but couldn't imagine a future where women's roles might fundamentally change. Yet the show remains beloved by those who watched it as children. There's something comforting about revisiting the Jetson family, even with all their old-fashioned qualities. They represent a simpler time, when the future seemed bright and full of promise. They remind us of Saturday mornings spent in front of the television, watching cartoons before heading outside to play. The Jetsons also stands as a testament to the power of reruns. A show that was canceled after one season due to poor ratings became an enduring classic through constant rebroadcast. Those 24 original episodes achieved more cultural impact through repetition than many successful shows achieved with longer runs. The Jetsons proves that initial failure doesn't determine ultimate legacy. The rise and fall of the Jetsons is a study in how timing, scheduling, and luck can determine a show's fate. It was well made, cleverly conceived, and featured talented voice actors bringing charming characters to life. None of that mattered when it was scheduled opposite Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color and Dennis the Menace. The show never had a fair chance to find its audience in prime time. But the Jetsons also shows how canceled shows can find new life. Moving to Saturday mornings gave it the right audience at the right time. Children embraced what adults had rejected. Years of reruns turned a failure into a classic. The 1980s revival proved there was still affection for these characters and this world. The sudden cancellation after just one season stung at the time. Fans who had discovered the show during its brief run were disappointed. But in retrospect, maybe 24 episodes was enough. Those episodes captured a specific vision of the future at a specific moment in time. They were repeated so often that they became familiar friends. Adding hundreds more might have diluted what made them special. Today, the Jetsons remains a touchstone of American animation. When we talk about classic cartoons, the Jetson family stands alongside the Flintstones, the Simpsons, and other animated families who captured our hearts. When we imagine the future, we still picture elements that the Jetsons introduced or popularized. The show's cancellation was sudden and disappointing, but its legacy endures. George, Jane, Judy, Elroy, and Astro live on in our memories and in constant reruns. They represent a particular vision of tomorrow, optimistic, funny, and thoroughly human. They remind us that no matter how much technology changes, families will still face the same basic challenges and joys. And they prove that sometimes a show that fails spectacularly can still succeed in ways nobody expected. If you enjoyed this look back at the Jetsons, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more nostalgic deep dives into the shows and cartoons that shaped our childhoods. What are your memories of the Jetsons? Did you watch it during its original primetime run, or were you one of the millions who discovered it on Saturday mornings? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, the future isn't what it used to be.